This is an article from 1973 in February, so these three women are all bundled up. And these three women, if you read the article, this is in Ford Park, and the women are called the Rescue Squad, I think. Yeah, the Rescue Squad. And the woman on the left here is seated is Mrs. Walter Colquitt, Minnie Colquitt, and I think, yes, that's right. And Cleo is standing with the shovel, and the woman to Cleo's left, on the right of the photograph, is Ruth Knoll, Sonny Knoll, or James Knoll's wife. And the three of them were close friends, and they also were rose rustlers. So when Cleo became interested in olive garden roses, these three would drive around with her throughout the Arklatex, going to abandoned farm sites and cemeteries, looking for roses that were survivors, and they would take cuttings. And there's a story she told me once that Lonnie, her husband, would drive them sometimes. And one time they were at a farm site that was fenced and had posted signs on the fence, and they were climbing over the fence. And Lonnie said, "Now, if the sheriff comes, I'm going to claim not to know you." So, and another time Lonnie was quoted as saying, driving with Cleo in the countryside on plant trips was more going in reverse than going forward. And this was an article in 1985. There was a group which Cleo was involved with that planted wildflowers on the highways in Caddo Parish. And
where was that?
Well, I don't know which, it was Highway 1, south of Vivian, and there was actually a Clyde Parkway. But there was also, they had a nature trail, a wildflower trail. And actually they did, for a while they were doing bus tours, so you'd get on a bus at the Broadmoor Center, and they would go on these trails when the wildflowers were blooming on the highway. And Cleo would go along and point out plants, and I guess they'd stop, and she would answer questions about the plants. And this article is, talking about the difficulty in the wildflower group trying to get the highway department to mow at the right time so that the weeds wouldn't be high when the wildflowers came up, and that they wouldn't cut the wildflowers down until they went to seed. So they had a lot of difficulty with that. And Cleo says at one point, she says, "We will never have pretty highways until the transportation department develops a program." We believe there are people in the department who want to preserve wildflowers, but their philosophy does not always filter out to all people involved in roadside keep-up or upkeep. This is a $50 million, and this is a quote from Cleo, "This is a $50 million tourist business in Texas. People come from all over to drive Texas highways. We need tourist industry in Louisiana. Tell me why we can't work out a program that will provide wildflowers in Louisiana. We could have wildflowers on every highway." So she's not afraid to speak her mind. She's going to be right there telling you.
We had the Red Clover on your drive.
That's right. That's
and
right.
They would come on and mow
And
it.
that was one of the things this group was involved with. And she told me that when I was visiting her one time that someone had called her and told her they were mowing the wildflowers. And I guess it was the Red Clover.
Yeah.
And she said, she just shrugged her shoulders and said, you know, I'm an old woman, you can't do anything with the administration when it changes. Oops, sorry. I shouldn't have the phone in my pocket, my finger does things. And this is, I was mentioning the Wildflower Trails in Caddo Parish. This is another article about that.
You said that quote. I can't read that.
The quote at the top,
Yeah.
it says,
It's blue.
"To see the world in a grain of sand and a heaven in a wildflower."
Who said it?
It's attributed to William Bluray. So this is talking about the second Northwest Louisiana Wildflower Tour, sponsored by the North Highlands Garden Club, and talking about the buses leaving the Broadmoor Center at such and such a time. And it mentions the plants that are planted on the highway being spiderworts, blue-eyed grass, phlox, red buckeye, I'm sure coreopsis, they don't mention it, but I'm sure it was there. And Cleo Barnwell, the wildflower advisor, will be along the trip to point out the different flowers and answer questions about them. This is a excerpt from Greg Grant's blog. I believe that's where I got this. He says, if you can't read that, Cleo, a Texan by birth, loved antique roses, wildflowers, and bulbs. Most of the unusual lycoris, that is spider lilies, that I grow came from Cleo. The Smith County Master Gardeners now sell them every year at their award-winning Earth Kind Bulbs Blooms Conference and sale each October in Tyler. Greg lives outside of Tyler. Cleo lived to be 100, and I'll always remember her wonderful collection of horticultural books, and that she was friends with the late Carolyn Dorman. And he says, if you visit Briarwood, you will see a nice collection of naturalized narcissus in the early spring. And this is a photograph of Cleo at Briarwood in what they call the Wildflower Meadow. And I know she told me that that meadow had a number of pine trees that they had to have removed because of Japanese beetle infestation. And she bought several thousand bulbs, narcissus, daffodils, paper whites, to plant there.